morning edition of the Ad Podcast. Thanks for joining and starting your week with us. We've got an exciting guest for you guys today. Todd Irwin is a brand strategy veteran with over 30 years of experience, who currently serves as the founder and chief strategy officer of Fazer, a New York-based brand strategy and creative agency. He's widely recognized for pioneering the depositioning methodology, a strategy designed to turn competitors' strengths into liabilities. His professional background and industry expertise spans leading large-scale identity and strategy projects for Fortune 500 giants, including Coca-Cola, Verizon, Walmart, and Nikon, as well as venture-backed startups from Sequoia and Google Ventures. Fazer Agency, under Irwin's leadership, operates as a new model agency where branding experts lead all of their teams, advertising, PR, and digital, to ensure a unified competitive strategy. He's also the author of Depositioning, the secret brand strategy for creating competitive advantage, released in November of 2025. His creative philosophy argues that traditional differentiation is no longer enough. Instead, brands must solve a specific hero pain point more effectively than rivals to render them irrelevant. Todd, thanks so much for coming on, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to read your book too, man. I'm sorry I didn't know you had a book before the interview. I'll be sure to put it on the Amazon wish list and throw it in the stack.
Cool, Dylan. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
But I don't know. Is it going to be color? Is it going to be color coordinated? Where will it fit in the color coordination library?
Oh, are we recording video? Oh no.
Oh man, I love that trend, but my whole bookshelf is a little bit, it's actually lined in more of like the order of which the things that I want to read. So I'm here for the visuals, but I haven't quite gotten around to the color coordination.
We just met and you're already calling me trendy, man.
Well, hey man, hey, I like it. No, it's looking good for sure. All right. I know I gave a mouthful of a bio there, but I'd like to take it back if you wouldn't mind. So tell me about where you grew up, where'd you go to school, and how'd you get into the business?
Oh God. Grew up in New York, Long Island, Brooklyn, Manhattan, all around. Started in music, art, design, liberal arts. Went to Hofstra University. Started out in the music, music career, music business, and then just transitioned into, actually started as a designer. And then, started a mid-sized agency in New York that did a lot of luxury fashion branding. And then I just got into the room with the strategy people and started to really just excel there. And that's how I started. Went from mid-sized agency to boutique agency. Never worked with any of the big agencies, but always worked like side by side. I guess our agencies were sort of like the ancillary agencies. We actually, some of the big agencies were our clients. Like they would snap us on, white label us, so we got to work on.
Bring you in for kind of like skunk off projects, stuff like that.
I mean, they do it and they still do it, but it's a great way to have a layer between you and the client when it comes to account management. But yeah, did a lot of the strategy and creative work for big brands through some of the big agencies. And then my story is that I was an ECD running accounts at this boutique 30-person agency down in Soho, New York, and 9/11 happened, and they immediately lost half of their clients. And so me and the ECD from that agency, this guy who was an ex Wolf Owens guy, and we were obsessed with brand, and that's all we ever did was brand. We broke off. We started our own shop, built it up to about 30 people. Had some really big clients. Went through the whole Lehman collapse of 2009. So we went through the roller coaster of running an agency. And then I bought him out, renamed the agency to DC3, and then built that back up and sold it in 2016, 2017. So I had an exit. Started consulting direct to C-suite, and then started Fazer about 4 years ago. And the whole thing with Fazer was, we were my first agency. We were like just analyzing the big branding shops. Like he was a Wolf Owens guy, and we had friends at Interbrand, at Lippincott and Landor, and all the great agencies. And studying Robert Jones. I don't know if you know who Robert Jones is, but he is. He wrote this. He was a head of strategy at Wolf Owens, and he wrote this book called The Big Idea.
Okay.
So we really modeled right after Wolf Owens, and I will say that we got referrals, and we pitched sometimes, and won stuff that clients who couldn't afford them, they would come to us. So we've been sort of like side by side with kind of without them really knowing it. Now they know it because they're on your podcast. But yeah, and it's been great because we watch their work and we're influenced by their work, and they're one of the best agencies in the world. And I'm so influenced by Wally Owens and Robert Jones specifically. So what happened was, and this is where I am now, is back in 2013-14, we won a really big project rebranding a Fortune 10 company. And we worked right next to one of the big four. And, we were doing our thing, like, creative positioning, find a gap, stand out, find the white space, position the company or the brand in the market. And then the group from the big four, we worked with them a lot, and we became really close friends with them. And they used to always tease us. They were New Yorkers just like we were, and we'd go out and we'd drink, and we'd eat dinner, and we would debate. And they were always like, we hate you creative agencies. We spend years analyzing markets, and we write these business playbooks, and then you take them and then you ruin them. Like you fluff them up, and you do all this differentiation stuff. Now, and I went to art school, so like I studied music art, like I said, music art, design, writing, whatever. And I wasn't going to take shit. Excuse me. Can I curse? Can I curse?
Oh, go for it, man.
Yeah,
this is not a children's show.
I'm like, I'm not going to take shit from a bunch of MBA, like pencil pushers, Wall Streeters, But, after a couple of bar fights, verbal bar fights, right? I was like, okay, guys, all right, let's go. Let's go into the room and whiteboard. Let's whiteboard this. Tell me what you're talking about. And basically what they said was like, you guys are like, all your creative agencies, you're run by people who went to art school, like, you went to RISD or you went to wherever, and you want to be creative for the sake of it. But at the end of the day, you got to look at buying science, right? If you really study competitive advantage. And what they explained to me was how they positioned businesses in markets. And the way that they did that was simple. They looked at the buyer journey, and it was all about pain point solutioning, right? And if they had a business, if the business could solve the buyer's most critical pain point and position the business around that, then that was going to be a successful business. And so why did agencies take that and then try to find a new gap, right? There's just a disconnect. And so we got into that, and that's where depositioning came from, because when you do that, when you position the brand around the solution to the customer's biggest problem, you automatically deposition the competitors. So like in our conversations, when that term came up, I wrote it down, like, okay, so, still worked with them, but then I started studying, okay, let me go to the library, check out Michael Porter's books on consumer behavior, right? You look at things like interference theory and the EBM model, and how, like, what is the customer's buying? By the way, the customer's buying journey never includes differentiation. It starts with a problem recognition, and then it goes through the process of constantly looking to solve the problem. Okay. Differentiation only happens at the start, when somebody's actually already made some decisions, and they're actually looking for something different. but it doesn't exist in the buying journey. And we're obsessed. We're obsessed as agencies, as business people too. I mean, the clients that come to us, the first thing they think of is, how do we differentiate ourselves? Well, that's the wrong question to ask. The right question
Yeah.
is, how do you solve the customer's problem better than your competitors?
I think that's so right, because, especially when I think about, even in SaaS, or especially in SaaS, I'm not ever A/B testing something. I'm trying to find one solution that solves my problem, and I'm trying
That's right.
to recall the company that I can think of that does it well. Whether it's CRM or lead. And now in the age of AI, oh my gosh, it's so intense
Right.
because there's so many companies.
Right.
And, the other thing to think about right now, I think, is just this idea that, 7 programmers in Claude in 5 minutes can create a company that can disrupt 40 years of brand recognition and business model creation. And,
That's right.
there's never been a faster time to launch challenger opportunities. So I think that's pretty insightful, and something that I've never given much thought to until you just kind of framed it up. So I love where we're going with this. So I want to start with a little bit of what you were talking about with the big four. So when you talk about big four, are you talking about big four holdcos, or are you talking about big four consulting companies? Are you talking about
Yes.
Deloitte,
Deloitte,
McKinsey? Okay, got it.
McKinsey. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
talking about the big four business consultancies. Yep.
Yep. And then, the other thing that I think, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate, just something that came out of, something that came out of Shop Talk this week. The consultants are out there selling something called, "Are you data ready?" Like in the age of AI, I feel like something that consultants are really good at is they're good at branding a problem based on a current business transformation situation that's going out in the world. Let's call it AI. And then now
Yeah.
they're running around asking every enterprise, "Are you data ready?" Okay, no. Here's a $500,000 study or workflow or process that we can sell to you. You think about the idea of the McKinseys of the world, and the fact that they can sell you a $500,000 brand study, but now you've got these AI tools that hoover up the entire world's data at your fingertips and can give you real insights at real speed. I'd be curious, on the devil's advocacy side, do you think the consultancies oftentimes are trying to brand a problem in order to go and put it out into the marketplace?
Oh, I definitely. If you're talking about the big four
Yeah,
consultancies,
exactly.
like the Deloitte and
Yep.
McKinseys.
Yeah. Like they come up with this, like, data readiness was the big one at Shop Talk. Are
Yeah.
you data ready? And if
Um,
you're not data ready, then you better buy our shit.
yeah. So how long does it take to get data ready? Would be the question that I ask. I
Yeah.
think everybody's trying to sell something,
Hmm.
and they're trying to validate their methodology, or the quality of their data, or the quality of their people. I think all agencies right now obviously are hustling to find the right pathway to what the future of success even means.
Mm.
Um, I think there's a lot to be said about, are you data ready? The quality of your data informs the quality of the insights that you use to solve business problems. So, I mean, are they selling it for the sake of it? I don't think they're selling it for the sake of it, but they're selling it, and they have to sell it because they've got numbers to hit. So,
Sure. Hmm.
and that's the bottom line with all of us, including you and I, right?
Yeah.
So,
100%.
we live in a capitalistic society, so, and that's not going to change. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to sell deep positioning.
No, I love it. I mean,
Yeah,
I can't wait to get into deep positioning more, and to talk more about the methodology. So I want to ask you another question on rebrands.
yep,
It seems to me like every time there's a new CMO, that's kind of the low hanging fruit that they kind of go to. It seems to be always the first thing that they push for.
yeah,
But now we live in this new world where brands don't own their brands. The consumer also gets a vote, and
mm,
they get to talk about their vote in a very public way. There have been a few examples recently. Let's say Cracker Barrel, probably the most infamous, where You decide that you want to go through a rebrand. Who knows why you decided to do it, whether it was somebody came in and sold you a study, or you got a new leadership, or something happened. And then you do the rebrand, and your consumers, light you up and turn you into smithereens on social media. Why is rebranding oftentimes the go-to instinct for a new CMO when they first land? And when is the right time for a brand to do a rebrand? And how do you avoid the Cracker Barrel scenario when you drop it, people go berserk, and you have to go back to ground zero?
Yeah, sure. Great questions, and I can address all of them.
Let's do it.
So first of all, in my mind, you have to address what actually is a rebrand. And I think the definition of a rebrand is way off the mark. The reason to do a rebrand is not because you want to do a redesign. And so I would say what Cracker Barrel did was a redesign of their visual identity, but not necessarily a rebrand. A rebrand is and should be a strategic shift in what the company, the brand, is communicating, and more importantly, bringing to the market. What are they bringing to the market? So you do a rebrand because you're delivering on something, right? And the market now is saying, we need something else. So to me, a perfect example of a rebrand is Apple shifting from usability as their brand positioning to privacy, because the market says, we're concerned about our data, and we're concerned about Google, Meta, Amazon. We're concerned about them taking our data and giving it away, right? We're concerned about people stealing our stuff. And so Apple sees that. It's a great move, strategic move for them to shift from focused on usability to a focus on privacy. That to me is a real rebrand.
Interesting.
What Cracker Barrel did was Cracker Barrel shifted they redesigned the face of their brand, and people didn't like the way it looked, and the market played art director. And then most likely was the board freaked out, the CEO freaked out, they pointed their finger at the CMO, and it was like, oh, I don't want to lose my job, right? So they changed, right? So it's like it got personal. It got really, really personal. Did it make a difference in terms of sales with Cracker Barrel? I've never seen the numbers, but I would guess no, of course not. Why would it? I mean, they got their customer, right? I mean, the redesign actually made a lot of sense. It was like a visibility thing from the side of the road. You can't see, their logo is so complicated. Like, let's simplify it so when you're driving down the highway, I can see, oh, there's a Cracker Barrel, right? I mean, it was that simple. Like, there could have been a solution that actually kept the old logo. I mean, it was an art director thing. Okay. So anyhow, so you're calling that a rebrand. I don't call that a rebrand. Not say you personally, but
yeah.
The market calls it a rebrand. To me, that's a redesign, visual identity redesign. And what do I think about it? I mean, I think it's the personality of the people who work at Cracker Barrel, and what do they think about it? They obviously thought enough about it, and they had a lot of pressure on them to make the change.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've heard about some rebrands or redesigns kind of being rolled out in in kind of micro moments. A friend of mine told me that one time he was responsible for UX for their website, and when they changed their corporate colors, they changed their colors dramatically. They went from like purple to red or something where it was even more dramatic than that. And people just freaked out, and, site visits were off, traffic was down, everything went down. They freaked out, turned it back to the old color, but they still knew that the market research said that if they implemented this color strategy, it would do X, Y, Z, things. So what they did is, instead of like turning the color overnight, they changed it one shade by day by day by day by day. So the first day it went from like blue to a little lighter blue, and then it slowly, after months and months and months, it arrived at the color that it was supposed to be at. and nobody said anything because it happened over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a lesson in kind of UX and maybe like some of these redesigns could be either more subtle so it's not so shocking, or is there a way now with AI to almost make it like an animation? Like you start at point A, you want to get to point Z, and you gradually change the brand from point A to point Z over a period of time so people get used to it, maybe in a way where they can be more accepting of it.
It's interesting. That's a really interesting case study. So it sounds to me like they're looking to change the color that they own in a stepped way to a different color, right?
Yep.
And what's the reason that they're changing? Is the reason they're changing because they were experimenting with the new brand color and it was more effective?
I think that was the state that I think the idea was that some type of research, whether it was focus group
Right.
or, something told them that if they did these things that, well, how there was a period of time where it was really trendy for colors to be tied to emotions and like thoughts
Mhm.
and feelings. So I think basically they felt like their current color scheme no longer represented the emotional conveyance of the language of those colors. So they needed to
Mm.
change to these other colors that were more in line with emotions and
Yeah.
words that were attached to not only their brand positioning, but their core mission and identity and how the way they would like their consumers to think about them. So they wanted to change the colors based on those things. But when they did it, the immediate response was revolt, essentially the same way the Cracker Barrel one was.
I mean, this is where, data and insights can get in your way of like being
Mhm.
focused on the right things. It just makes me think, Dylan, of Steve Jobs, and how he just didn't listen to the market. He didn't focus group anything. He literally hired the best people there were for each position and then trusted them
Mm.
to implement the right strategies, whether it was, Johnny Ives on the design side or whoever, right? Like I'm gonna trust the best people to, hit the baseball over the wall, kind of, so to speak. I think that sometimes sometimes we get so overly obsessed with focus grouping and data. It takes away from our ability as human beings to think big, and be risky. So like uh, if it was a temporary blip, and they were going, and it was a good idea from a psychological, emotional connection to color, then it take a little bit of time for the market to catch up, and then reset itself to the brand. I don't know. I think again, this goes back to organizations that have a lot of layers and a lot of personalities, and everybody's trying to keep their job. And so when they see a downturn, they panic,
Yeah, great
which
point.
is understandable.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love the idea that you know hire the best people and make decisions.
Yeah.
I one time spoke to the chief marketing officer of Farmers, and he said
Mm,
the larger the buying committee, the worse the creative. Because you've got more inputs and the more people who can weigh in,
yeah.
the more chances it's going to go to the middle versus being something that's going to break through.
Yeah.
Um,
We used to always say that the idea was a square. And then the
mm.
committee came in and everybody chopped all the edges off of it. And then it turned into a circle. But the circle is not the big idea. The square was the big idea, but everybody chopped all the edges off. And now you got a
Yeah,
circle. And the
that's
circle
great.
kind of sucked. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's get into depositioning.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what depositioning is, and tell me how you've developed a methodology around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I was saying earlier about my experience 10, 12 years ago with that Fortune 500 client and working with one of the big four, business four. Depositioning is a methodology that looks at two things. It looks at customer pain points, and it looks at competitor weaknesses. And so, where most brand strategies, most agencies look at relevance, and they also look at differentiation. How do you stand out in the market? How do you find a gap? Depositioning doesn't approach it that way. Actually, we actually don't believe that there's many gaps left, because markets are so hyper competitive that you can't find gaps anymore. And it's also anchored in, like I mentioned earlier, buying science. So we look at the customer. We try to identify as many pain points as possible, and find what we call the hero pain point. So back to Steve Jobs. Well, actually, I take that back. Back to Tim Cook and Apple, and my privacy example earlier. That was the hero pain point in the market. They decided they need to shift the positioning. That's a classic deep positioning move, where you shift the brand positioning to solve the hero pain point for the customers in the market. So that's what we do. We look at those customer pain points. We try to identify that hero pain point, and then we're also looking at competitors. How are they trying to solve it as well? Because everybody's trying to solve pain points, but how does the brand do it better than them? And so it's also not just about the positioning itself, even though the word is depositioning, or the methodology is called depositioning. It's also about a lot of other things, like discipline. Like, once you have the positioning, like owning it as one big singular idea. It's about making sure that it's as clear to the market as possible. We believe in this thing called coherence, which is it's like clarity of the solution in messaging, but also in a way that the customer understands it so deeply that it's they can feel it, right? They can feel that the brand delivers on, in Apple's case, privacy. And then the other thing about brand, which is like solves, or addresses, I think, a misperception in the market about branding in general, which is that brand is not a logo, brand is not a tagline, brand is not surface. Real companies that know how to approach branding integrate brand deep into the organization. That's what Apple does. Okay, and I always go back to Apple because they are the stellar example of this. There really is no brand better than them at this. A lot of great brands out there, but Apple really is the master. They integrate the brand deep, deep, deep into the culture of the organization, into how they structure the organization, into how they recruit, into, most importantly, how they build their products. So brand goes deep, and so deep positioning, again, it starts at the top. Like, if you don't have the right strategy, you're in trouble, and if you do have the right strategy, it changes everything in the organization. So you start with positioning, which is positioning a brand around that solution to the hero pain point, and then everything else just follows. So that's my quick spiel on depositioning.
I love it. And I love that you started to lean into product led, because
Yep.
that's where I feel Apple is the differentiator for me. Me and the Apple ecosystem, and the fact that all my devices are Apple, and that I buy and watch all my television, and I access all my entertainment, and I access all my news through Apple, generally doesn't come too much to me. Like, I think privacy is something I was aware of, but maybe as a marketing person, I don't care about privacy. My whole position on privacy is like, as long as I'm not doing something illegal, I like the idea that I have no privacy, because that makes products work better. But then I think on the flip side, I think you were talking about something that was different, which is my data secure, so I don't get hacked, and I don't get my crypto stolen, or my bank account stolen, or my emails hacked? And that's a whole nother story. Yeah. But when you think about being product led, Apple creates this ecosystem where their products are so good, so easy to use. But then, like, I think about, like, how the hell did Apple lose AI? Like, how did Siri end up sucking so bad? And all these other companies, like, these guys have the hardware, they have the button I hit to talk to AI, And even Meta has gotten me into their AI because they make the eyeglasses, right? Like that you talk to Meta through the hardware. How do you think a company that has so many things right, how do they miss the boat on AI?
Well, I mean, did they?
I don't know. I mean, I sure don't like
So,
talking to Siri.
okay. So, what's the thing about Apple that's really, really true? That's the big question to ask.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's that Apple. So this is the thing about Apple too. I think, actually, I know because I've been studying Apple. It's in my book, right? Is that Apple? They are the kings, the masters of depositioning. Apple is actually not the innovative company that everybody thinks they are.
Huh.
Apple is always second to market.
Interesting.
Always second to market. So they developed the Macintosh to deposition the computer industry, right? The industry was complex. You had to go to a class, right? To take, like, I had to go to a computer class to learn how to use a computer. They created.
You had to go to like a hobby shop in order to buy.
Right, right.
You were buying the motherboards next to like toy rockets.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly correct. So what did they do? They created the Macintosh, which a 4-year-old could use.
Yeah.
Same thing with the iPod, right? They depositioned the Sony Walkman. Sony Walkman was first to market, right? Same thing with the iPhone, right? They depositioned the BlackBerry, which was first to market, right? And I think even with privacy, they realized that everybody was trying to deliver on privacy and they couldn't. And like, opportunity, we're gonna position around privacy. What are they doing now, which is in the news actually over the last few days, is they're going to aggregate all of the AI platforms. Instead of competing against them, they're going to bring them into the Apple ecosphere, so you can use all of the AI platforms, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, within Siri. So Siri is going to become the aggregator, which, by the way, none of the other ones can do because they're all standalone. Think about that. What are you doing right now? You're jumping back and forth between all the different. I'm using ChatGPT for my research, Claude for my writing. I'm using Gemini for this. I'm using Perplexity to shop. Blah 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 blah. Apple's going to take all of that into Siri, and yeah, it's just in the news for the last couple of days. Yeah, it's
that's
pretty
crazy.
amazing.
That is
so
pretty,
here they come again. Apple's coming. Apple is coming. Don't mess with Apple, man.
Oh, that's so
Don't
good.
sell your stock.
That's so good because you're right. You're right. Like like my AI journey was like ChatGPT, and then one day ChatGPT was down, and then I was like, okay, that's interesting. Oh, Grok actually works really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, got the Meta sunglasses. Now I'm Meta AI. Oh, Grok's down. Let's try Gemini because it's built into my Google suite. But yeah, if all I had to do is hit this button every time right there where Siri lives, then I would do that. So you're right. They have the pathway to least resistance.
Here they come, man. Here they come.
Wow.
Right?
I love it.
Don't
all
you?
Right. So why was depositioning something that was so interesting to you, or you were so passionate about that you wanted to write an entire book about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had connected with the editor of Branding Mag, which is a branding publication. Flavia, who's the editor, we connected somewhere and we were talking, and I was telling her about what we were doing and depositioning specifically. And she's like, "Oh, do you want to write about that?" And I was like, "This is back in 2020 or 2021." And so I wrote a series of articles on depositioning for Branding Mag. And then my friend Cameron, who runs an agency called Cross Media. By the way, you should meet Cameron. He's awesome.
I'm a fan of Cross Media, so I would love to interview him. Yeah.
Yeah, you should interview Cameron. He's awesome.
Let's go.
So we were hanging out, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. We were catching up, and I told him about the series for Branding Mag, and he looked at it. He's like, "You need to write this book." He's like, "This is really, really something." So then I was like, okay, it was in the back of my head. And I was hanging out with John Bond. Remember?
I love John. Yeah. He started
He started that social.
Oh yeah, and then he
Treasureman Bond.
he had that social agency that was like early days, like 13,
Oh
14
yeah,
years ago
yeah, yeah.
too,
What was it
right?
called? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah, I can't think of it.
John's amazing. I know who you're talking about,
Yeah.
but
Good dude.
John's a legend. So I was
Yeah.
telling John about depositioning, and he's like, "You're onto something." He's like, "Wow," and I didn't realize he was a branding guy. And then he told me that he
Mm.
started his career at Trout and Reeves. I mean, Trout and Reeves are the guys who wrote the original positioning book. So then I was like, okay, I'm writing this book because it's got to be written. So I did. I wrote the book.
I
Yeah,
love it, man. That's
yeah,
awesome. What a great
yeah.
story.
And it's not self-published. It's a real publisher. It's like
Let's go. It's
everybody's writing a book in like
hey, let's
like
go. Here it is.
oh yeah, exactly, in a weekend. Did you write that in a weekend, Dylan?
Well,
by the
yeah.
way, it's so easy now, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Well, look, I'll tell you about my process, and I think it was actually a really great process. My fraternity brother Nate Pettyjohn, he runs a little agency out of Brazil,
okay,
called Corduroy, and
cool.
he specializes in making rich people famous. Is kind of what his agency does. So it
Yep.
takes people that have a lot of money and they want to be like Mark Cuban. Okay, cool. You can make that happen if you have enough money. So I'd referred him to several ghostwriting clients over the years, and he's like, Dylan, like, thank you so much. Like, dude, let me write your book because you've sent me so much business, and the way that you do business development, I feel like it deserves a book. And I was kind of like you. I was like, I never thought about start writing a book because I never thought my life or what I do would be that interesting. But it's like you said, Todd, like when somebody else comes to you or like multiple people come to you and they're like, no, I think this is a book, then it's like you start to pay attention. And I don't like writing. That's why I do a podcast. That's why I don't write, lengthy LinkedIn blogs, and I don't have a Substack because I don't enjoy writing. It doesn't fill me up, but I do love talking to people.
Yeah.
So what I did with Nate is every Monday we spoke for an hour. He had questions. He transcribed every conversation that we had until it was up to 70,000 words. He helped organize it all in chapters. He helped prod me for the examples to use for case studies. He prodded me for all the forewords and the quotes on the back and all the things that you have to do. So yeah, full published under his shingle. And released,
Cool.
kind of the self-published way. But yeah, I think people always tell you a book is the most expensive business card you ever bought, right?
Yeah. And listen, I'm not criticizing anybody who
Yeah.
self-publishes. It's
Mhm.
first of all, it's not easy to write no matter what AI tool you use.
Yeah.
It's all about the big idea if you're going to get any traction with it. And sometimes self-publishing is the best way to go.
Yeah.
So, I
Mhm.
mean, I have a client of mine who self-publishes and has sold 1 million books on Amazon. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's amazing.
unbelievable. Yeah, yeah,
So
and,
good.
doesn't believe in publishers. Because you can do it yourself.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
some people embrace this whole new direct consumer world where you don't
yeah,
need labels or studios or publishers. I think
yeah,
there's benefits and drawbacks, and it really just depends on how much work do you want to do and how
yeah,
much of your own money do you want to invest in the process. So I don't think those guys are ever going away. I think it'll always be, it'll be an or, not an either. It will be yes and versus either or. I think
yeah.
for somebody.
Well, by the way, if you wanna, write another book, I can introduce you to my publisher
I'm,
'cause they're
I'm good.
great. They're great.
I'm good probably for the immediate future, but if somebody wants to
Good.
relaunch it, that's another story. So,
There you go.
all right. I love this idea of the idea that being different no longer works. This idea that
Mm,
there's no white space left.
yeah,
Niches are actually liabilities. It's crazy when I drive down the street and I see a billboard for a new insurance company in Southern California called Adriana, right? Like the
mm,
idea, like, okay, did we need another insurance company? We've got Geico, we've got State
sure,
Farm, and I think like the way that I think about Adriana is like, oh, okay, they're like positioning to like Latinos. Okay, like California is a majority Latino state. Maybe none of these brands were talking to Latinos in a way that they were felt represented or heard or and it's just like this hot, girl on a billboard, this hot woman on a billboard. It's like, okay. But I think like, some people got together and obviously they have enough money to buy tons and tons of outdoor boards. So a bunch of people got together one day and they said, hey, we need another insurance company and we're going to go after the Latino audience. So is it prudent to, as an entrepreneur, like, do you sit down and do you say, okay, like, I don't care that there's no white space. I don't care that there's 100 competitors in my category. I'm going to do this new thing and here's how we're going to do it. Is that prudent? Or like, I don't know. That just is not the way that I've ever approached an entrepreneurial journey. I always try and think of like, oh, what's the thing that's never been done before? But at the end of the day, I see new businesses all the time that are based on models that have been around forever. So be curious of your thoughts there.
Yeah, so first of all, there's, what you're talking about right there is differentiation. And so like, do I have something different, which I think is cool that I can bring to market? And we see this all the time. I mean, we have clients that come to us where they're VC backed and they've got a lot of money from one of the big Palo Alto VCs or whatever VC or P, excuse me, or PE, excuse me, a big PE, and they've got I've got a lot of money to spend, and they have a big idea, but there's no market yet, right? And so they're running in the red because they're pre-revenue, right? And so they're taking a big risk. There's a quote in my book from Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and he said, if you want a business, solve a pain point. If you want a business that's going to make money, solve a pain point for the customer. He was basically saying what depositioning is when he said that. And it's real. I mean, yeah, I mean, what's her name who wrote that book? What is oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. She wrote the book about buying boring businesses.
Oh yeah. It's
God, she's great too. She's so good.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about too, but I can't remember her name either.
Yeah, she just did a podcast with Gary Vee, and I was like, oh, that's so great. But she's talking about like all these boring businesses that are out there that are for sale where you can make a lot of money. Because why? Because they're boring, because everybody else is trying to be different and do the new, unique, cool thing, but has no market. Now, it makes sense. I mean, the VCs out in Palo Alto are it's a numbers game. They're hedging that, like, if they invest all this money in 100 companies, one is going to be the next Meta, and they're going to be insane. They're going to get insanely wealthy from that. That's fine. But that means 99 companies that are not going to make it, or they're going to get acquired and become products of this company. So, listen, what do you want to do? Do you want to make money, or do you want to do something cool and potentially go broke? I mean, those are the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't believe I can't think of that girl's name either, but she reminds me of like the young female version of Marcus Lemonis, who had that show, The Prophet, where he would go and fix those dysfunctionally owned small businesses. But yeah, I mean, the other component around that is, with the boomers retiring, 90% of generational wealth, these small to medium-sized, non-sexy firms, they will disappear because they can't find buyers, or their kids want nothing to do with them. It's a lot of wealth that's just going to not evaporate, but it's going to just be like, those businesses are just going to shut their doors, and they'll still sell, because everything, you got to sell the cars, you got to sell the machinery, you got to sell the computers, but they'll be sold for literally a fire sale versus any kind of enterprise value. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I love this idea of turning your competitors' strengths into weaknesses. This really gives me like the perspective of like the current, what they call the challenger brand, or then even this idea of the founder-led brand, where now these big companies have to fight against a little guy who's not just a little guy from a business perspective. It's an actual little guy, like a guy who can put out videos on TikTok, write LinkedIn posts, do PR hits, like these founder-led brands kind of have a superpower because people buy from people. They don't always buy from corporations or companies. So talk about the idea of turning competitor strengths into weaknesses. And I would love your perspective on the modern day challenger brand or the founder-led brand, and if you think that's a point of differentiation.
Well, I think, first of all, I think all brands are stronger if they have strong founders, right? And strong leadership, and specifically the CEO or the founder. So I think that it gives you a competitive advantage if you have a founder that knows how to lead the market, think big, influence the market. I think that attracts customers. There's a lot of going back to data. There's a lot of data about that. As far as challenger brands go, in general, and what you mentioned about competitive weaknesses. So this goes back to when you're positioning a company, when you're building products around your positioning. What are you looking at? A great way to find what the customer pain points is to look at the market and see what all of the competitors are trying to solve. And so that gives you a look into the market and how to find solutions. And the key to winning in competitive advantage is to solve those problems better than the market. Now, that sounds like a business exercise, and it is, but it's also a brand exercise. So it's the marriage of business and brand together, which goes back to what I was saying earlier for that team from the Big Four business consultancy that I was working with. That where depositioning came from. It's like if you can figure out what that hero pain point is, and you can solve it better than the market, you can challenge the kings of the market, right? And you see it. I mean, this is why these big corporations spend less on innovation and more on acquisition, because they're so big, they can't move so quickly, so they just have to acquire. And so challenger brands, part of their strategies are, okay, we're going to get acquired. So let's spend the next 5 years building a better product, because we know X, Y, and Z company that run the market right now can't move as quickly as we do because their innovation departments are slow. So at the end of the day, a true challenger brand creates a better product that solves a customer problem. And so,
I
yeah.
love No, I love that. And then, can you tell me more about the psychology of decision
Mm.
moments? I thought that was really interesting, right? Like, there are moments that we as consumers go through when we are open to the idea of brand exploration or maybe even making a change because we had a bad experience. Talk more about decision moments. How important are those? How can brands identify them and infiltrate them?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's I'm being a little redundant here, but the moment of decision is the moment of problem recognition. So it's, I'm hungry, I need to get somewhere, I need to go on vacation, or on the B2B side, I need to hire an agency, or I need a vendor to do something. Right? I've got a problem that I have to solve. So. Um, that is the first phase of the consumer's buying moment, right? And that's what companies need to focus on. Bottom line, is it changing? Yeah, it's changing. I think it's changing in a big way. AI is making a change. AI is changing the customer journey in the sense that where we used to listen to our friends, that turned into listening to Google, right? Now we're listening to AI platforms. And so the the moment is shrinking and happening faster, because now you can go in Perplexity and you could ask it a question and it's going to spit out a short list, not the first page, which is, the first page of Google, right, which has got 10 options plus 3 or 4 sponsored ads. It's been compressed. It's been compressed. But I think the decision moment is always going to remain the same. It's problem recognition, which is another reason why to not focus on being different. Why would you want to be different when what you should be doing is solving the customer's problem?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love that idea about how, the Google results have been corrupt for so long, right? Because these SEO agencies have been
Yeah.
around and they've been backlinking and blogging and creating all this stuff. And you always felt like you were kind of being hoodwinked, even when you were getting to websites that gave you valuable information. But then you had these influencers, right? And it's like, oh, cool. Well, now there's these third-party people who go out and review stuff, and then they got corrupted by brand sponsorships. And now AI is supposedly this new place where we can kind of trust the results. But then, you've got Claude and Anthropic doing a Super Bowl campaign about the idea of how OpenAI is soon going to have ads too. So eventually AI will be corrupted if it hasn't been corrupted or co-opted already by people who are figuring out this idea of AEO, or when ads will start to seep into some of these platforms. But I think at least for the short term, we have some degree of an objective nature. But I love this idea of, like you're talking about, like if I hit the Siri button, it's going to look at everything and then bring forward the things that are the purest from the perspective of a trusted partner like Apple, right? So all roads lead back to Apple.
And by the way, we don't know it, and this is in the news right now. Who knows what it's going to look like? I mean, maybe Apple will also vet through the answers, right? Because that's another thing that's happening right now. We're having to look at citations to see if they're right. And then you've got different citations in one platform, different citations in another platform. Maybe Apple can help figure out which citations are real and which are not. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. I just hope Apple, one thing that the only product deficit that I've ever seen them is just voice needs to work better in their ecosystem. But again, that's a personal rant on my end.
Have you tried WhisperFlow?
No, what's that?
Oh my God, you got to try WhisperFlow. Changed my life. So I was watching an interview with Mark Andreessen, and he was asked what his favorite apps were, or AI apps, or whatever. And he talked about WhisperFlow changing his life. So I was like, oh my God, I got to write that down. So I wrote it down. So it's a AI dictation, but it learns who you are. So you can plug it into everything, and just press a button and just dictate your texts, I dictate my prompts now. I mean, I dictate everything. My emails, it's incredible. And it learns who you are. And even if you mumble through it, which for me is an issue, as you can tell from interviewing me here, right? It's amazing. It's amazing. WISPR Flow, WhisperFlow. I have nothing to do with the company. I am not getting paid to do this. It was Mark Andreessen talked about it. Maybe he's invested in the company. It doesn't matter, but it's amazing.
That's all that matters.
Really incredible.
That's all that matters, is that it works, right?
That's right. And it works, man. It works.
That's pretty cool. All right. At one point, you talked about something called the smile test. You mentioned that the personal brand of Ken Burns made you smile because of its consistency. What tell me more about the smile test.
Oh, it's really simple. I think people are attracted to people who smile. And they're in what we do in branding marketing. It's about being attractive. It's about being a magnet. And so whatever you can do as a brand to smile, to be positive, I think that's where that came from. Yeah.
I love that.
Really simply. Yeah.
All right, Todd, fascinating conversation. I feel like
Yeah,
I've learned quite a bit, and I can't say that I always learn from my podcast. So thank you for an incredible
cool.
teaching moment and for giving a lot of value to the audience. I feel like people have gotten, or hopefully will have walked away from this interview with a lot of practical knowledge and application. And with that being said, if folks want to purchase the book, keep up with your thinking, learn more about your agency, where would you like to send people?
Sure. I mean, for the book, Amazon. The book is called Depositioning, DE dash positioning. It's under my name, Todd Irwin, with an I. The agency is called Fazer, Fazer, and we're at Fazer.agency. And yeah, that's where you can find us. Reach
Love
out.
it.
We'd love to
Let's
hear from you.
go. Awesome, man. And for those of you who are watching at home, if this is the first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening, a honest review on whatever podcast you might be listening on is how we find a larger audience organically. And if there's an entrepreneur out there or maybe a CMO who's thinking about a rebrand, or potentially an entrepreneur or someone who you think would benefit from the conversation that I had with Todd today about these ideas of depositioning and rebranding and all of the things in the world of AI, don't forget to share the show. And with that, Todd, I will wish you a great week. Thanks again for spending some time with the audience today.
Thanks, Dylan. Really appreciate it.